From $50 to $50 million, the garage genius who fooled everyone. What if I told you that the man sitting in this messy garage with exactly $50 in his bank account and a rejection letter from his dream job still warm in his hands would become worth 50 million in just 3 years? What if I told you he almost quit 47 times? And what if I revealed that his biggest mistake became his greatest fortune? Because today, you're about to witness the most incredible transformation story that will shatter everything you think you know about success, failure, and the thin line between giving up and breaking through. Stay with me, because by the end of this video, you'll never look at your own failures the same way again. Picture this. It's 2:47 a.m. and Marcus Thompson is sitting on his garage floor, surrounded by broken electronics, unpaid bills scattered like fallen leaves, and the crushing weight of another failed prototype. His wife Sarah had stopped believing in his hobby months ago. His friends called him delusional. Even his own mother suggested he get a real job. But here's what nobody knew, including Marcus himself. He was exactly 72 hours away from creating something that would change not just his life, but the lives of millions. This isn't just another rags to riches story. This is the raw, unfiltered journey of how one man's desperate attempt to avoid bankruptcy accidentally revolutionized an entire industry. And if you've ever felt like giving up on your dreams, if you've ever wondered whether your side hustle is just a waste of time, or if you've ever questioned whether you have what it takes, this story will either inspire you to push through, or it will haunt you forever with the question, what if I had just held on a little longer? Hit that notification bell right now, because what you're about to discover might just be the turning point you've been waiting for. The breaking point, when rock bottom becomes your foundation. Marcus wasn't born into wealth. He wasn't a tech prodigy or a business school graduate. He was a 34-year-old former auto mechanic whose biggest achievement was fixing Mrs. Johnson's ancient washing machine for the 3rd time that month. But sometimes, the most extraordinary stories begin in the most ordinary places. The breaking point came on a Tuesday. Marcus had just received his 47th rejection letter from potential investors for his smart home automation system, a fancy name for what his neighbors called Marcus's weird gadget obsession. His savings account showed 50 to 32, his credit cards were maxed out, and the mortgage payment was due in 3 days. Sarah, his wife of 12 years, sat him down with tears in her eyes and said the words that would either destroy him or define him. Marcus, I love you, but I can't watch you destroy our family chasing ghosts. That night, alone in his garage laboratory, really just a corner filled with salvaged electronics from garage sales and dumpster diving expeditions, Marcus made a decision that would change everything. But it wasn't the decision you might think. He didn't decide to quit. Instead, he decided to build one final prototype, not for investors or customers, but for Sarah. Something that would prove to her that his vision wasn't madness. Working with nothing but spare parts, a $20 Arduino board, and the kind of desperation that either kills dreams or births miracles, Marcus began constructing what he called the marriage saver. A simple device that would automate their home's lighting, temperature, and security systems. He had no idea he was about to stumble upon the exact solution that major corporations had spent millions trying to develop. As he soldered circuits at 3 a.m., surviving on gas station coffee and vending machine sandwiches, Marcus embodied every entrepreneur's darkest hour. That moment where you're simultaneously closest to your breakthrough and your breakdown. The thin line between genius and insanity had never felt thinner. The accidental discovery. How failure became fortune. 3 sleepless nights later, Marcus's marriage saver was ready for testing. What happened next would be talked about in business schools for decades to come, but not for the reasons you'd expect. The device worked perfectly, too perfectly. Instead of just controlling their home systems, it began learning from their daily routines, predicting their needs, and adapting in ways Marcus had never programmed it to do. The breakthrough wasn't planned. Marcus had accidentally created a neural network loop using components that weren't supposed to work together. His lack of formal education in computer science, which every investor had seen as a weakness, had actually freed him from the conventional thinking that limited trained engineers. While tech giants were building complex systems with thousands of lines of code, Marcus had achieved the same result with elegant simplicity born from necessity and ignorance. But here's where the story takes an unexpected turn. The morning after installation, their smart home system prevented a break-in by automatically calling police when it detected unusual movement patterns. It saved Sarah's life by detecting a gas leak and shutting off the main valve while they slept. Within a week, neighbors were begging Marcus to install similar systems in their homes. Word spread like wildfire through their small Tennessee town. What Marcus didn't realize was that his neighbor Jim Patterson was the CTO of a Fortune 500 company who had been on sabbatical. Jim had been quietly observing Marcus's project, initially as entertainment, but now as a potential business partner. When Jim saw the system's capabilities, he knew Marcus had accidentally solved problems that had stumped entire engineering teams. The phone call that changed everything came on a Friday morning. Jim offered to invest $100,000 for a 20% stake in Marcus's accidental invention. But the real game changer was Jim's network. Within 30 days, Marcus was presenting his prototype to executives from Amazon, Google, and Apple. The garage genius who couldn't get a $5,000 loan suddenly had tech titans competing to acquire his technology. Sometimes the universe has a sense of humor. The same simplicity that investors had mocked as amateur was exactly what made Marcus's solution revolutionary. While competitors were building complicated systems that required PhD-level expertise to install, Marcus had created something your grandmother could set up in 20 minutes. Scaling the impossible, from garage to global empire. 6 months after that life-changing phone call, Marcus found himself standing in a 50,000 square foot facility in Austin, Texas, watching robots assemble devices that bore his signature design. But scaling from one prototype to millions of units nearly broke him in ways poverty never could. Success, Marcus discovered, came with its own unique brand of terror. The first major crisis hit when their initial manufacturing partner in China delivered 10,000 units with a critical flaw that could cause house fires. Marcus had 72 hours to decide, recall the entire batch and lose $2 million, money he'd borrowed against future projections, or fix the issue through software updates and risk lawsuits if anything went wrong. The weight of other people's money, other people's trust, and other people's safety created a pressure cooker that made his garage days seem peaceful. Marcus chose the recall. It nearly bankrupted the company before it truly began, but it established something more valuable than short-term profits: unshakable customer trust. This decision, which seemed like business suicide, became the foundation of their brand promise. We choose your safety over our profits, always. Customer loyalty skyrocketed, and pre-orders for the fixed version exceeded 100,000 units within 90 days. But the real test came when Apple offered $50 million to acquire Marcus's company outright. $50 million. More money than Marcus had ever imagined possessing. His lawyers urged him to take it. His financial advisors called it a no-brainer. Even Sarah, who had suffered through years of uncertainty, gently suggested it might be time to secure their family's future and move on. Marcus spent 3 sleepless nights walking through the same garage where it all began, now converted into a museum of sorts within their new home. Surrounded by his original prototypes and rejection letters framed on the wall, he realized that selling would mean giving up not just on his dream, but on the dreams of the 50 employees who had believed in his vision enough to join a startup that operated out of a garage just months earlier. The decision to turn down Apple's offer was the hardest of his life, but it was also the decision that transformed him from a successful entrepreneur into a business legend. Within 18 months, that $50 million offer looked like pocket change compared to what Marcus was building. The empire strikes back when success becomes your greatest enemy. By year 3, Marcus's company, now called Home Genius, was valued at $500 million and had revolutionized how people interacted with their living spaces. But Marcus quickly learned that reaching the mountaintop doesn't mean the climbing gets easier. It means the fall gets deadlier. Success had brought enemies he never knew existed and challenges he was completely unprepared to face. The first warning shot came from a patent troll lawsuit claiming Marcus had infringed on a vague technology patent filed 15 years earlier. The legal fees alone were $50,000 per month, but more devastating was the psychological warfare. Marcus found himself spending more time with lawyers than engineers, more time defending what he'd built than building what came next. The garage inventor who thrived on creation was drowning in corporate bureaucracy. Then came the betrayal that almost ended everything. Marcus's original business partner, the neighbor who had given him his first investment, attempted a hostile takeover by secretly acquiring shares from early employees who were struggling financially. The man who Marcus considered family was trying to steal his life's work through legal manipulation and financial pressure. Trust, Marcus learned, was a luxury he could no longer afford. The darkest moment came during a board meeting where Marcus realized he was being voted out of his own company. The amateur garage inventor narrative that had once been charming was now being used as evidence that he lacked the sophistication to lead a $500 million enterprise. As he sat in that sterile conference room, surrounded by men in expensive suits discussing his future like he wasn't there, Marcus felt further from his dream than he had in his broken, desperate days. But this is where Marcus's story reveals its true power. Instead of fighting the boardroom politics or playing their corporate games, Marcus did something that shocked everyone. He quit his own company and started over. At 37 years old, with a net worth of $50 million, Marcus walked away from everything and returned to his garage. Not because he was defeated, but because he remembered who he was before the world told him who he should be. The sequel to Marcus's story, how he built his second company to a $2 billion valuation while maintaining complete control and revolutionizing an entirely different industry, proves that sometimes the greatest victory isn't holding on to what you've built, but having the courage to build it again, better this time. Marcus's journey from $50 to $50 million isn't really about money. It's about the moment you decide that your vision matters more than other people's opinions. Every rejection letter, every sleepless night, every moment of doubt was preparing him for the success he couldn't have handled earlier. The garage wasn't his limitation. It was his laboratory for becoming the leader his empire would eventually need. Today, Marcus Thompson is worth over $200 million across multiple ventures. But he still starts every morning in a garage. Now a state-of-the-art workshop, but a garage nonetheless. He's proven that success isn't about changing who you are. It's about becoming more of who you already were. The mechanic's hands that once fixed washing machines now shape technologies that improve millions of lives daily. The most powerful lesson from Marcus's story isn't about business strategy or investment tactics. It's about the 47 times he almost quit, but didn't. Your breakthrough might be disguised as your 48th attempt. Your fortune might be hiding behind your next failure. The only difference between entrepreneurs who make it and those who don't isn't talent, luck, or resources. It's staying in the game one day longer than they wanted to, Right now, someone listening to this is sitting in their own version of Marcus's garage. Maybe it's a spare bedroom, a coffee shop, or just a corner of hope in their mind. You have something valuable to offer the world, even if the world hasn't recognized it yet. Marcus's story proves that the most extraordinary transformations begin with ordinary people who refuse to accept ordinary limitations. Your side hustle isn't just a hobby. It's your audition for the life you're meant to live. Marcus didn't succeed because he was special. He became special because he succeeded at not giving up. The question isn't whether you have what it takes to build your empire. The question is, are you willing to stay in your garage long enough to find out? Your breakthrough is closer than you think, but only if you don't quit before it arrives. And I genuinely want to know, what is the dream you're building in your garage? Let me know in the comments below, because every great empire starts with a single idea. If Marcus's story lit a fire in you today, show that inspiration by hitting the like button. And to make sure you never miss another story that proves the impossible is possible, subscribe and join this community of builders and dreamers. The journey doesn't have to stop here. YouTube thinks you'll love the video that's on your screen right now. Click on it to keep that momentum going, and I'll see you there.